say I didn't have a lot of therapy in college, though I should have. And I think WashU is actually really good at offering services to kids now, even better. And even then, right? I think I walked into, you can have free therapy. I walked in, I had like one conversation, and oh well. After college, though, I was profoundly sad a lot of the time. I was profoundly sad a lot of the time in college too, but I was angry and sad, and at that point, really realized how fucking fucked up and dysfunctional my family of origin was, and how much that had fucked me up, and how painful it was to relate to my parents who were often cruel to me and absolutely denying my experiences and my humanity even. So painful. So I started seeing therapists as much as I could afford, and my parents actually helped me with that, thinking that, on some level they loved me, right? And they just didn't understand what was going on. And at several occasions they came to my therapy. It sits with me, and but they just really somehow weren't ever able to see. And like for years, there was like a lot of letters back and forth, me trying to say to them, look, you hurt me, you hurt me, and you deny me. Anyway, it was. I can't say that they dropped the ball. I mean they were trying, but it just wasn't. They just couldn't see it. I just couldn't see it, and I was in so much pain. So so I pretty much had therapy from then on. And in the beginning, it was the issue. It was two major issues, right? It was this coming from this really dysfunctional family and having a lot of deficits because of it, emotional and spiritual and emotional. I said emotional deficits because of this very dysfunctional family. And also, and related, and maybe a little bit different, is they lived in a lot of illusion, right? They had sort of this. At one point, I called it a folie à deux with my parents. Like they loved each other. They had I think a strong partnership, but they seemed to live in this sort of illusory world. And I was so determined not to live in an illusory world. Like I really, really, really rejected that. Because I saw how much it hurt me, and to live in this illusory world, and I really wanted to live in reality. So my therapy was about getting past the pain of not being well loved by my parents, and then living in reality, which is actually pretty much the major point of all therapy, right? Like it's helping us deal with the hardness of reality. That's what good therapy really is. It's helping us have the strength to face reality so that we don't kind of do what humans tend to do, is just hide in some kind of illusion or something that feels better but is a lie. Like, no, and I really wanted to live in reality. I didn't want to do that. So those were the two things that were, and the grief of my parents eventually, years and years and years of therapy, but I finally was able to kind of let that go to some degree. And then, being in reality is a constant challenge. And look what happened when I started seeing real reality, and what I have to write about now. And it's ugly, right, for a woman. No wonder it was a huge challenge. And the other part of therapy that was kind of a regular thing for me, a regular issue, and I couldn't talk about this with anyone in polite society, really. Even my dear friends who probably have similar issues, but like I couldn't figure out a way, or I didn't want to talk about this issue because it sounds bad. And that is that I'm off the charts. Right? I mean, I didn't use those words in my therapy at the time. I just said, it's always like I'm extremely gifted and talented. But at this point, I think it's fair to say I'm a staggering genius. I'm just so visionary. I'm just way ahead of everybody else, mostly. And how awful is that in so many ways, right? In terms of belonging. And so that was really like a big part of my therapy is like so much of human interactions, and I observe them carefully. Like, how do I fit in? How do I belong? Are stupid from my perspective, like shallow and stupid and insane even. And and I feel, often feel isolated or lonely because I see things in such a different way, and it's really hard to find people who see things the way I see things. No one, maybe, but like closer. And so that was another, of course you can't say that, right? In any kind of polite society. Well, my problem is I'm a saccharine genius. That's really my issue. It's hard. It's hard. You can't say that, right? But it is a huge issue. And it's an issue for all gifted and extremely gifted and talented people. Like, how do we belong in a larger community when we're on the far side of the bell curve? There's not many of us out there. And I'm a very social person. I like people. I like connecting to others. So that's always been a source of pain. Like, how do I be my brilliant, visionary, etc. self, and also fit in, have friends, and belong, etc. Those were pretty much the key issues that I was working on in therapy most of my life, as much as possible. I mean, it was really too about, I guess you could say it's following Socrates' advice, right? To see reality clearly, you have to know yourself first. What are your demons? What are your blindnesses? What are your filters? And the more you know, the more clearly you see. It's about leadership, right? You can't be a good leader, really, unless you've done this kind of work. You just can't be. There's a lot of people out there who are shit leaders who imagine themselves in this sort of illusory way that they are good leaders, because there's a lot of stupid people out there who validate them because they're stupid too, right? But you can't be a good leader unless you've had a lot of therapy. Unless you've had a lot of time sitting with someone just figuring out who you are. Right? So that you can see reality and make good decisions based on actual reality, not some delusional fantasy that's based on nothing.